All right, welcome back to the show. He says. In today's episode of Watercolor Theory, Plein Air Painting, I want to go over a painting that I recently did in Niwot. I'm calling it Under the Bridge, and you can see why. It's in a green space, open space, behind one of the fellow members' houses, and she was nice enough to grant us access. Some people painted on her property. Here's a painting or a picture of everybody's paintings being critiqued. I think there were about 10 or 11 of us there that day. It was a great turnout. If you have a group in your area, I really encourage you to join. People of all levels, and it just really is helpful. And in the case of this group, it really is helpful because they also have a critique at the end. So I'll be going over a few different things. I'll go over those bullet points really quick. So why I painted this painting, or what to look for in a painting, because sometimes you just have a hard time figuring out what to paint. The focal point and the area of interest, which will be included in that, but moving forward, I'll really go into in future episodes talking about, drawing differently in certain areas, really focusing your drawing where you want to focus the viewer's attention. So that's focal point, area of interest. The drawing phase, what did I draw firm, what did I draw crisp, and then what did I draw light and loose? Painting phase. This particular painting, Under the Bridge, was a lot more paint focused rather than drawing focused. And as I work on my system and work to improve that system to help you improve your system, there are going to be days where it's like, okay, I'm not doing this layering process. Some people are very disciplined about that, and I want to allow my subject to kind of tell me what approach I should do rather than having the same approach to every painting. But we will go over consistency of drawing, of your look, and getting to that style that's a signature of you. And then what I would change. So a self-critique, and in this case, there was a critique afterwards, and the key critique from that is the key critique for what I would change. And then that brings us to the more important part, steps you can take to ensure future success. So what were the weak points and how can I incorporate them? How can I make a little 3x5 note card of just, don't forget this, don't forget that, until those things become habits. I'm fortunate enough where I can paint 3 or 4 days a week. Maybe you can't, and having a little cheat sheet would just be helpful so that you're not like, I always forget that part. And then moving forward, just me going out and learning, making mistakes, sharing those things with you, and hopefully we can grow together. We are approaching the winter months, everywhere in the Northern Hemisphere, but in Colorado, that's going to affect how much I can paint outside. So right now I'm capturing data, I'll record a video, yada, 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 so that in December, when it's 3 below outside and I don't want to sit in my car and paint, I can paint in the studio as if I were on location. And that's part of what it's all about as well. I love knocking out a painting in 2 to 3 hours while I'm plein air painting. However, some of those best practices from that system will help in the studio as well. Just being able to knock out a painting that's lovable in a short amount of time. So that's what I'm going into today. So please stay tuned, like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done it already. And now on to part 1, which is why I painted this and what you should look for. All right, why I painted this painting and what you should look for. So I was one of the first people to arrive. 1, I wanted to introduce myself to the owner of the home and thank her. And 2, I wanted to get a head start on everybody else. So I walked past her backyard because I didn't want to paint stuff that was too man-made, and she had pointed out a barn in the distance, which unfortunately I don't have in a photo, but I wanted to look for things that are out of my comfort zone. So I wanted water, I wanted grass, I wanted rocks. I didn't want a lot of architecture. So the first thing I found was this little spot. Yes, there is the architecture of a bridge, but there was grass, there was water. There weren't any rocks, and I didn't throw any in there. So what captured my eye was the shadow that was being cast. So you've got this brown, orangish bridge, that's rusty bridge, and then underneath it you have the shadow it's casting. So there's automatically contrasted value. And then you also have contrast of color. You've got the shadows against that orange, and then you've got the colors changing as far as the autumn colors coming in. So you have a lot of contrast there. And so these are the things to look for. What is an area where there's a dark next to a light? Just learning what captured my eye, not looking for things, looking for effects. So light and shadow, shadow is the effect of the light. You're looking for a moment in time. And so that moment for me was an autumn morning, which actually was, and then capturing that with a light breeze. So most of my grasses are out of focus, other than the cattails. The colors are warm, one, because of this early morning sunlight during the golden hour, and two, because of the autumnal colors. So those are the things to look for. A lot of times I find, and I know that Andy Evenson has commented on this in one of his videos, that he used to drive around for hours and not find anything, because you're always looking for gold. You never see the silver and the copper. And sometimes those little things work out to be great. This particular painting, I saw the cattails as well, and remember that my mom asked for a painting with cattails. And so this took care of two different things. I was able to gift that to my mom, and she put it in a frame that her dad made like 70 years ago. So here's a copy of that. So it was a great gift. It's not a gallery piece, it's not anything like that, but realistically, we need to do a lot of these little studies, these little things that are maybe gifts or that are hung in the home, to teach us how to paint those things for a future painting that maybe is a gallery painting. Or maybe, like me, you're going to find that you just love being able to finish a whole painting in 3 hours that people love and are amazed by. That, I think, is why I love plein air so much. You're forced into a timeline, and you've got to knock a painting out, or you got to go back the next day. So, and one other thing about this painting and subsequent paintings that you might see behind me, I knew that there was an event coming up with the Plein Air Artists of Colorado, who I paint with, where I could submit 5 paintings, but they had to be 100% plein air. So that was another thing. There was a challenge there. There was a deadline. It forced me to do it. So that is also part of my enthusiasm for plein air painting. And it's nothing new. I mean, plein air goes back to the 1800s, and it was very popular in the late 1800s in France. Monet and the Impressionists going out and painting outdoors. I mean, they didn't have electricity yet. Photography was just an infant, so they went out and they painted, and this is so rewarding. I find that I'm taking far less photos, and the photos that I am taking are much better. They're better resource material. I'm learning to focus my attention on those focal points and areas of interest. All right, for the drawing and painting stage, in subsequent videos, future videos, there'll be a lot more focus on drawing. This one that I have behind me, this is called Up the Ridge. So we've got under the bridge, up the ridge, or over the ridge, and then we've got the one after that is over the bridge. So with these two and this little farm painting here, drawing, excuse me, you can see there's a lot of darkness, everything's dark here, and then it gets lighter. So this is my focal point, then my area. So the focal point is small, area of interest, and then the rest of the painting. There's a little bit of that at play here as well, where I've got focal point, very dark, very light, but I'm also allowing for this to work as well. I've got lead-ins. So that's where we're at on that with the drawing phase of this particular painting. And I can't point to it now because it's 500 miles away, but on screen, you've got lead-ins, you've got the water snaking up, you've got the bridge coming down at an angle. If I'd done it flat, it would have not had a dynamic to it. Some of the cattails going off at angles. But most of that was drawn in a manner that I wouldn't lose the cattails, and then the bridge, just to give that bridge a structure that didn't look like it was about ready to fall apart. But other than that, this was much more paint oriented because I knew that I didn't want to paint a lot of grass. I wanted to splatter that in. So my painting process was very loose. I let my first initial wash dry, and then I went in with some heavy splattering with some yellow ochre or raw sienna, and really, I say both. It's PY43 is the yellow, and it varies. The name varies by manufacturer. I have so many tubes of it now because I didn't really pay attention to that, but that's a different story. So I knew I'd be splattering that in, and then I'd mix in a little bit of cobalt violet, a little bit of cobalt teal, and really, get some, different color variety in there. This painting, I feel, is one of the first to really utilize my palette that I've been working on. I've really been trying to get a couple of colors that go almost neutral. I use phthalo green yellow shade, which is this acidic color, but when it's mixed with quinacridone violet or dioxazine purple, you can get some really beautiful blue grays, and then they can also go reddish. And usually there isn't really a reddish gray, but it's a neutral, but it's not leaning towards the brown. So really gives a lot of variety of color, and that's my palettes coming together, my approach to drawing and where I emphasize is coming together. But again, this particular painting is all about the waves, the amber waves of grain, the grass blowing, and then really, those 5 cattails, the water, and then the shadow. It all works together very well. And the bridge, I really feel, even though I didn't soften the edges, which I'll go over what I would do differently, I wish that there was a little bit there, and that was the one true critique of it, is that the lost and found edges were a little too found and not lost quite enough. And so I'll have that coming up shortly with some Photoshop comparisons. All right, so on the screen I have two versions of the painting. On the left is the actual painting that I did, and then to the right is an adjusted version. And so I darkened a little bit in the corner and the whole section. You can see where I blurred this with Photoshop, not any kind of thing on the actual painting. And then added a little bit of green to this. And and I did boost it a little bit so it's, visible, the difference. And then I've got this difference here, a little bit darker here. Something that I thought of after the fact was on this left bank, I wish I had warmed this a little bit more, kind of like this guy. Instead of having that white, having it be warm, and then going a little bit more maybe blue violet with this, like carrying some of the shadow over to really get this to pop. In subsequent paintings, I did something like that. Let me see if I can find it here real quick. I'll just pop this open. Go to my file folder. And then like this picnic table, just having, more like this color is super light and faded. What's important is really, darker and pops more. And on this one, there are a couple of things I would change as well. But this is 4 paintings later. So this is me self-critiquing, getting feedback from people, and trying to create a progression and create that color palette and create a distinctive look that if there were 10 paintings lined up and only 3 of them were mine, hopefully 2 or 3 of them would be, oh, that's a Jason Tatinger, that's a Jason Tatinger. That's what I'm shooting for. And that's what I'm hoping that you can get out of this as well, your own distinctive look and the confidence to get out there and do it yourself. So with those changes in mind, I really do feel that this painting would pop a lot more. And then, not that it needs to pop a lot. Some of it is just the abstract nature of it is part of what makes it a success as well. So those are some of the things I would have changed. So I'm going to stop screen sharing and come back in a moment. All right, so steps you can take to ensure future success. So not knowing your schedule, I would say get out there and paint, as much as you can before it gets cold, but you might not be able to paint very often. And so part of my system for getting prepared for plein air painting is to get your kit set up somewhere in the house, make room somewhere, and just have it ready to go if you don't have, your own studio space. And also get used to tearing it down, setting it up. Do I have the right amount of brushes? Do I have my brushes? Do I have my water bottle? Having everything ready. And you might just paint inside for a while. But, one of the most important things you can do is find that peer group. Again, I don't paint with them every Thursday, but I joined the Fort Collins group last Friday and had painted this barn at a different angle than everybody else was painting it. And the owner of the property came over and said, oh, I've never really even looked at it this way. And she bought the painting off the easel. So, just being out there, putting yourself out there and not being afraid. There's so much support in the community, and there's so much to learn while you're out there because, again, you're going to finish a painting in 2 to 3 hours. I'm working 11 by 15. You might want to just bring an 8 by 10 or a 7 by 10 and just, do some little paintings, do some studies. Your kit doesn't have to have a pochade box. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's just get out there and paint. I love being able to hear a critique, process it in the back of my mind, and then say, is that something that will move my painting forward? Is this something that will help? Is it in alignment with what I want? And that critique of the bridge, of the girders, whatever it is, balusters, the structure of the bridge could have been slightly blurred. And I agree with that. And so, but then, as you work with people, they're going to say, oh, this is your best work yet. Or, oh, I know what you're going for. What if you tried this? You're building a relationship and it's around your art. And they have thin or thick skin as well. So they're not going to, they might say something bluntly, but they're not going to maybe be, hurtful. So get out there, paint, and get in your local group or find somebody, and just get out there and do it. And next week's, excuse me, painting will be this one over the ridge, up the ridge, over the river and through the woods. I'm not sure. That was the one I completed the following week. And so I feel that there is a progression here that I did draw, and I'll put this on screen as well. But I put, more emphasis on this bush, and then this tree is, this whole area is the darkest area. You've got the lead in, you've got this shadow, these trees could also be considered a bit of a focal point. A very subtle sky washing down. So there's one. This is where I was standing when painting under the bridge. And so I came over here to check on another painter, and when I turned around to go back, I saw this and was like, oh, I need to come back. So this was approximately 2 weeks later. This was the day after this. So then this was Thursday, and then this was Friday. And then on Saturday, I went up to Lake Carter, which was very low, and all the boats were dry docked. So I couldn't paint. I didn't feel like painting dry docked boats. So I went for a walk and saw this guy and was like, wow. My wife kind of teased me. She's like, we went to a lake and you painted a picnic table, but I'm really happy with the results on this. So that one's a couple weeks out, and this is where I really feel like things are starting to come together for me with my plein air painting. And then maybe because of that feeling, the next painting I did after that was this. It's called Johnson's Gas. It's a bar in Longmont. It was a bar that Jack Kerouac stopped at and wrote about. And the restaurant or the gas station's been moved, turned into a restaurant/bar. It has an Airstream on top. It's a really cool place. The painting was a challenge because this whole building is kind of just white stucco. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm working on neutrals. Didn't quite hit it with this, and it does read a little bit more blue on this than in real life. That's just how my lighting's set up in here. And then I'll put up on screen the next painting I did, which was a barn and a little Chevy truck and a pumpkin patch at Osborne Farms in Loveland, Colorado. And the host, again, purchased my painting from me. I was very thrilled. And then she also, gave me she has a history of an artist, a connection to the artistic community of Loveland and Colorado going back years. So it was a great thing. By putting myself out there, I met somebody, I sold a painting, and it also just kind of helps me feel like, maybe I'm on track, getting things done. And then the reason I picked a different angle for the barn painting that I put on screen is I had this painting in mind as a studio piece. Knowing that it's going to get cold, knowing that I'm going to need to work in the studio for a while. Again, this one will be in a little bit, and hopefully between the time that I'm doing this video and the time that this video comes out, I'm hoping that I have 4 or 5 subsequent paintings that I can then have as videos, because I really want to take you on my journey and get you to feel comfortable asking me like, hey, this is my problem, or this is what I'm up against. What do you think I'm doing wrong, or what do you think I could do better? And let's focus on progress together. So I'm working on my progress, and I'm hoping that I'm inspiring you to work on your progress. And speaking of which, if you are inspired, please like it. It tells YouTube that somebody likes it and other people with similar interests will like it. Share it. That's a big one. If you share that information, then they're like, oh, this is good stuff, then the algorithm will share it as well. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers before this time next year. So it's October of 2024. So by October of 2025, I hope to be well past 1,000 subscribers and my 4,000 hours of viewing time. So please, as I'm evolving my video process and my painting process, share any inspiration you have from your own painting or anything I've done to inspire you. Until next time, it's lovely to see you again, my friend.